Morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Sarah McClellan. I'm a work psychologist and the author and founder of Make It Human. For those who I haven't met before, it's great to see you and thank you for coming along today. This session is called Coffee and Culture, and it's really an opportunity to unpick an aspect of culture and try and make it simpler for you in terms of shaping happier, healthier, more human cultures wherever you are, whether that's in your team, whether that's in your organization. Um, it's pretty informal. What tends to happen is I talk for around 10 to 15 minutes and share a new idea or concept or tool that you can pick up and use. And then we open up some conversation and question. The only rule is that you bring a cup of coffee or tea. Actually, I've got tea today, or whatever your beverage of choice is. So, the topic today is 3 quick ways to evaluate your culture. And getting under the skin of culture is so important in today's world because it's moving around and changing so quickly. We really need to take moments to understand it so that we can shape it and nudge it in a positive direction. So let me dive in and start exploring that topic with you all. And what I wanted to do was start by reminding you, and some of you may have joined earlier coffee and culture sessions where we talked about this in terms of what culture is and how it shapes us. So I wanted to do that by sharing a few images of environments and scenarios in workplaces. And the first one is this quite industrial kind of echoey looking space and ask, is this the kind of place where you would feel you could complete focused work? Could you sit down and concentrate and do some writing or some problem solving independently? And I think for me, it doesn't really feel like that. It feels more like an interactive, collaborative space. It feels like it's going to be quite loud and echoey if there is sound in here. And also there's quite a lot of distractions if you look at the kind of design of this room and the building itself. It's really going to give you a lot to look at and explore. So perhaps not the great environment for completing focused work. And then what about if you're working in a workplace or an office or wherever the location is, and it gets to lunchtime and you look around and you see people eating lunch at their desk. This happened to me recently. I've been spending time in an office, and exactly this scenario played out. You look around and you find yourself doing the same thing. So this is really how habits of people around us can shape what our culture becomes, and the own behaviors, the own habits that we engage in. So if you look around, you see everyone sitting there working on calls and trying to eat lunch around that, you're probably less likely to stop and take a break and take lunch as well. And then, in terms of behaviors that are accepted, tolerated, or even rewarded, in this kind of scenario, are you likely to put your hand up and ask a question or interrupt and ask a question? It looks to me like this person here is being quite aggressive. It doesn't feel like a safe space, and you can see by the expressions on the other two people's faces that perhaps that's how they feel. So how we behave, the habits we engage in, and the environment that we shape really is constantly shaping what our culture is. And critically, that cycle is continuously shaping what we do as individuals. And so you can see how that cycles around and continuously shapes the culture that we work within. And on a previous session, I talked about the culture triangle. So the environment, the habits, and the behaviors. And this really is how we can make culture more tangible and how we can then use that as a guide to help us evaluate our culture, quickly dive in and almost take the temperature and see how are things feeling, what is really guiding some of those assumptions, beliefs, and how people feel and therefore how they act. So here's 3 quick ideas. First one is that you can gather views at key moments. There are particular moments where your culture is really felt and experienced by others, and often through fresh eyes. So when you're hiring somebody, that's a great opportunity to ask them, how does it feel? What sense are you getting? What does the culture say to you? Also, when they're onboarding, coming into the organisation, meeting with a cross-section of different people, and at key stages, both thinking about sort of job stages, so maybe they're moving teams, maybe they've been promoted, but also life stages. How does the culture, how does the organisation support people through different phases? The second one, which I'm really keen on, is around sentiment analysis, which, it doesn't actually have to be really complicated, doesn't have to involve lots of tools and technical approaches, but it's really kind of looking at the qualitative data. So what are people saying about this organization, about this culture? And we've got that all around us. So through engagement data, what are people actually writing in response to engagement surveys? Maybe it's exit data, maybe it's things like Glassdoor. What are people actually writing about your culture, your organization? And looking at the words and really understanding the type of language and words that people are using to describe your culture can reveal so much. And then the third one is kind of more in relation to the environment, but you'll also encounter habits, behaviors along the way. So it's a great one to do. Again, you could do this yourself, try and walk through your environment, whether that's physically walk through, or maybe it's more of a digital or virtual environment, but also ask visitors, what are their first impressions? What do they notice? How does it feel? What's on the wall? What messages does it send? So these, I think, are really three quite quick ways that you can try and start to get under the skin of your culture without having to kind of put in extra measures or processes to gather this type of information. And here's a little bit more depth. So if you want to take one of those and then go a little bit deeper in exploring that area. And I think one thing you can do around the first area in terms of kind of the stages and phases that really matter is think about the moments that really matter. So with work and life swirling around us, there are particular moments that can really shape our expectations and our beliefs. And I think this can be a really good conversation to have with your team, whether that's a team that you're managing, or maybe it's a team that you're part of as a leader or a manager, and thinking about some of these situations or these scenarios. And this is something that I talk about at Make It Human in terms of the messy middle. It's less linear now. It's these moments, interactions, stages that really count and leave a lasting impression. So things like what happens when mistakes are made, how is poor behaviour managed, what happens when people's life changes, they've got to care for somebody, they're going on maternity leave, they're coming back from paternity or maternity leave. Those moments are really shaping how we feel and the sense that we get of this culture. And a great thing to do is have a conversation around this as a team to gather, what experiences are we shaping here? Could we be more proactive in shaping something more positive and more reflective of the culture that we want? So moments that matter and shaping them, I think, can really help. In terms of turning qualitative data into strategic insight, one way that we're helping clients and leaders navigate this is by examining some of that data in a kind of more structured way. So using our own models to really go, actually, so you've got all this fantastic data, but how can we make more sense of it? How can we turn it into something more valuable and useful? So we're taking our culture models and applying them against the data set that you have already. So you don't have to go out and do another survey and ask people again. There's a lot that we can do with that existing data. So yeah, get in touch if that's something that's of interest to you. And then in terms of the environment, again, there are some great tools out there, and we have created one using a framework from the Institute for Corporate Performance, or I4CP, who I've identified 10 common types of culture. and created this tool, which really gives you insight into what are some of the cues in the environment that might suggest what my culture, what type of culture I'm creating. And this is a great thing to use if you're doing a walkthrough, or even if you're interviewing people, you're asking people, what does it feel like here? What impressions do you get? And you can get a sense of what type of culture you're shaping and how it aligns with what it is that you want. What are you saying? What values have you got? How does that fit with the forward focused strategy? And this will be, we're just creating at the minute a members area in our website, and this tool will soon be added there. So if you're a member of the Make It Human Club, you will soon be able to get access to tools like this to help you do this type of evaluation. And finally, I wanted to share that we have recently brought out a new diagnostic. It's really quick, takes 2 minutes to complete. You answer very short questions about your culture today, whether that's for your team, whether it's for your organization. You can choose which one that you answer it about. And then you get very quick, instant feedback around your growth culture scorecard. So in the previous session, we talked about growth cultures and that being the standard that is really helping organizations find ways to enable growth for people and businesses. And there are 5 elements within those growth cultures that I have found, that we have found, really deliver sustainable success. So you can take this really quick diagnostic and access personalized feedback around where you're standing today and some ideas, some recommendations on how you can strengthen your culture. So do have a go at that. It's completely free. You can use the QR code to access that. And there's also a link on our website too. So I hope that's given you some insights, some ideas, some food for thought, perhaps, on how you can get under the skin of your culture and evaluate it without, too much effort. Those additional ways that I shared are kind of adding more depth, more structure, more granularity. But even if you do some of those initial ways, you're going to get a better understanding of how your culture feels today, and importantly, how it's shaping expectations, what people believe, how they think, how they feel, and how they act. And that really is the process that we want to tap into so that we can create more positive experiences and outcomes for people and for businesses. So next time, 2 weeks today, on the 8th of May, we will be talking about how you can get started with culture change. So do join us for that if you can. And please spread the word. It really helps to get more awareness and more people involved in these sessions so that we can equip as many people as possible to shape great cultures. Thank you. We'll open up for questions now and discussion.